Hey guys, I am Sharon Tillman here. And so I wanted to jump on really quickly and just talk a little bit about fruit and root, right? So I remember when I first started this walking journey, I'm walking every single day, probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And I made this like a time with my father. And so as I'm walking down the street, I started inviting the Lord to walk with me because there were a lot of things that I was dealing with that I just didn't understand. And when you get to that place in your life when you're like, God, I just want to be better, right? I want to know like what really causes these particular things to come out. Like, what is it that really triggers this? What is it that really causes this to be some fruit that I am producing? Because ultimately we know that we have the fruit of the spirit. And so we always want to be like producing the fruit of the spirit, but sometimes we're not always producing the fruit of the spirit. And sometimes there are other things that we're producing. And a lot of times we're producing those things and we don't know the why, which is the root behind what it is that causes us to do that. So one of the things, because I love to be transparent, right? One of the things that I really struggled with was unforgiveness. I really struggled with that. Like for people who knew me personally, they would know like Sharon says she forgives, but her forgiveness don't look like the Lord's forgiveness. Her forgiveness looks like, no, I forgive you, but I'm not dealing with you. No, I forgive you, but I'm not like, we ain't moving like that no more. No, I forgive you. But I have the ability to make you feel like you don't even exist in my life. Like that ain't real, like godly forgiveness. Now, don't get me wrong. There comes times in your life when you have people that you do have to forgive and let go. And listen, the Lord helped me to know to be okay with that. You don't have to like rekindle. You don't have to steward certain relationships. Like there are certain relationships that once you forgive, you can move on. You can walk away. You can be free. Like that was like the art of forgiveness that I really had to learn how to do it. And I guess I never knew how to do it because I struggled with it so bad that I was determined to do it my way. So as I'm taking these walks, I remember the Father literally walking down the street with me. I'm trying to paint this picture for you. But as we're walking, he's literally taking these walks with me every day. And he's pointing out things to me that was the root to where it was that was causing this particular fruit to be produced. So whenever we're looking at people, and we're not here to judge people at all, but the Bible even tells us that we know them by their fruit. So when we're looking at people and they're producing a certain kind of fruit, instead of looking at them and looking at the fruit, why don't we ever just stop and be like, I wonder what's the root to that. I wonder what's the root to what it is that's happening. What is the root? And let's look at ourselves, okay? Because I always say, if we spend half the time working on ourselves that we worry about other people, baby, we would all be better people out here in this world, right? So let's look at within ourselves. And when we're thinking about some of the things that we do, some of the ways that we show up, some of the ways that we exist, when we're thinking about that, stop and ask yourself, wait a minute. What's the root to that? Why did I move like that? Why did that make me feel like that? Why did that make me like respond like that? What is the root to that? I want you to know that there is a root to certain things that we do. It's not just the fruit. The fruit is what we're producing. The fruit is what's coming out. The fruit is what is seen. The root is what's not seen. This thing is buried down on the inside, and the Father wants to uproot that. But how do we get to a place of uprooting it whenever we don't know what it is, or when we're not trying to allow him to go inside and point out to us exactly what it is? And how do we uproot that so that we can replenish it with the thing that needs to be there? And I love the Father for what he did for me, because once he took me back to that place, and then he even revealed to me what happened to me in that moment, that I felt like that I started to protect myself from things, and I was no longer allowing the Father to do it. Listen, I want you to know that the fruit may be what we're producing. It may be what's showing up, but there is a root that the Lord really wants to get to. He really, really, really wants to go inside. He really wants to get to the root of what it is that you're producing, the root of what it is that's causing the fruit. Because once that that root comes up, once it's uprooted, once it's no longer there, then different fruit will come. I want you to know you're not going to be stuck with the same fruit once that root changes, because when the root changes, the heart changes. And when the heart changes, the branches change. Okay? Come on now, because come on. I need you guys to go with me this morning, because I want you to know that the Father wants us to be better. Ultimately, He wants us all to be better. But how do we really get to that place of being better? How do we really get to that place of walking differently? How do we really get to that place of stewarding life differently and allowing Him to do the things that He wants to do? I promise you that infidelity is not because they just want infidelity. The infidelity is because the root of insecurity is lying there, and it needs to be replenished. It needs to be refilled. The Father needs to allow them to know that they are valuable. Come on, here's our word again, that they are valuable and that they are worth it and that they are enough. And a lot of times when those particular things are not stewarded, when those things are not filled with the right things, when we're trying to fill that insecurity with something that's not supposed to be there, then we're always going to be producing things that's not supposed to be coming up. But I want you to know that the Father with His good old self, does anybody love the Father this morning? Because I love Him. The Father with His good old self wants to replenish those things on the inside of you that's bringing up fruit that's not supposed to be bringing up. He wants to uproot those old roots, to uproot those bad roots, to uproot those roots that ain't supposed to be rooting. And He wants to produce the good fruit. He wants to produce the fruit of the spirits. He wants to produce you walking life in a different way. I want you to know that the Father has need of you. There is somebody that is waiting for you to get into position because there is something on the inside of you that they need. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that and do it effectively is if you uproot those things that are on the inside of you by allowing the Father to come in, allowing Him to get to the root of that thing so that He can change the fruit that we see on the inside. Does anybody want to have some good fruit? Does anybody want to walk in that place of good fruit? Is anybody trying to really steward good fruit? Listen, I want you to know that the Father's got you, but you've got to surrender. You've got to let Him do it, and you've got to let Him bring up those bad roots and replace them with the good ones. I am Sharon Tillman, and I love you guys for real. Have an amazing day.